The City of Cape Town has announced the first steps to take over the rail network in the city following the green light given by Treasury for a feasibility study to take over rail function. To discuss this further, we're joined by Mayoral Committee Member for Urban Mobility, Councillor Rob Quintas. Councillor Quintas, good evening to you. Thank you for your time. Firstly, this decision by Treasury for you to go ahead with a feasibility study, what are you reading into it? Are you seeing it as a sign that you could well be given the green light to run what would ordinarily be a function of national?
Good evening to you, Kathy, and to all the viewers and listeners. Kathy, it is most certainly a green light. In fact, about a week and a half ago or so, I received a email directly from Minister Enoch Godongwana addressed to myself, commending the city on taking this bold step forward in terms of undertaking the feasibility study. It is a great pity that the thinking of the minister was not in the same line as the previous minister, who in fact warned us of engaging into the feasibility study. So we sadly have lost about 15 months. We could be 15 months ahead of the process had we not been told to literally stay in our lane. However, Minister Godongwana has not only commended us on undertaking the feasibility study, but has himself as well said that it is the most natural concept for the local authority where it can and is able to run a passenger rail service servicing its municipality to be involved in a much higher stake. And that is certainly a very strong tacit nod from the minister. And I think we've also seen conversations, certainly on the television, and in statements by the Minister for Transport, Mr. Fikile Mbalula, as well, mentioning that it's time that government, national government, looks at how they are handling rail, and that we look at that they particularly look at third-party partnerships, external stakeholders. So that is all the sort of criterion that we're going to be looking at and interrogating in our feasibility study to assess how and when and at what cost would it be that the City of Cape Town can take over or have rail devolved to us as the natural land-based transport authority.
That's, of course, going to be the big question, the how of it all. PRAS, of course, would have been the entity that is given budget as well to be able to build, maintain, and run such infrastructure. When you take over, would you want a portion of that budget? And in as far as changes to the current legislation, are you seeing that that will have to be part of the process?
Well, I think that it's certainly going to be something that is going to come out in great detail during the study. The study, I must add, is a 3-year study. However, we are of the opinion that should we get the necessary information that we require urgently to start assessing things such as costs and the how and the when and the what that we are able to do in this devolution of rail to the local authority, being the City of Cape Town, we'll be in a much better position to answer very technical questions or detailed questions. The study, as I said, is a 3-year study. It will commence on the 1st of July 2022, which is the beginning of the new financial year. The tender for this consultancy is approved. There were no appeals. It has passed, and it will then come into effect in July of this year. And we hope that we could certainly lessen the time frame by up to a year or 2 years, in fact, if we have all the relevant necessary information provided to us by PRASA as and when we ask for it.
What are some of the key questions that you would, or key data that you would be looking to gather through this feasibility study? We know some of the questions that you'll be asking because you've run us through them, but in terms of information gathering and who needs to provide that information?
So there will be various key stakeholders involved in this study that will have to answer to a host of questions, and whether that be the National Department of Transport, Metro Rail, PRASA. We'll also have to look at the various legislative frameworks, the Treasury, and the Council of Ministers, and the various stakeholders involved in this study. So there will be various key stakeholders involved in this study that will have to answer to a host of questions, and whether that be the National Department of Transport, Metro Rail, PRASA, we'll also have to look at the various legislative frameworks, whereby we can interrogate some of the very clear statements within our own constitution, which say that the running of services such as, in this case, a passenger rail service, must in fact be devolved, not should or could, must be devolved down to the local authority if they are able to satisfy the criterion to provide that service. So part of our questions that we need to ask and have answered is, how do we do that? Do we do that with X amount of budget from a certain source? Will it be a private-public partnership with someone who knows how to run rail and efficiently? So these are all the questions that need to be answered through the feasibility study, and these are the ones that are very much present on my mind. But the consultants that have been appointed come from the public transport space, they come from a rail space, they come from an engineering space, and safety and security space, because of course we have to look at how will we protect the assets, being what's left of the rail and its rails, how we protect the rails, protect the stations, how we maintain them, repair them, and who will run the trains, with what type of trains. We need to understand what PRASA's plans are for the future with modernizing their fleet. We have to look at all of that, and these are many of just some of the very many questions that are going to be interrogated and give us a very firm view of the how, the when, and the what is going to be entailed.
This, of course, is a public service, and we have many people that rely on rail for transport on a day-to-day basis, rather. And yes, you know, public-private partnerships are really beneficial, but there'll be many people who raise concerns about the private sector getting involved in something that is primarily supposed to be for public good, given the kind of impact that may have on the price of using that rail network.
Well, you know, Kathy, I don't know if that's entirely true, because for all we know, and I really do mean for all we know, I'm certainly not saying that this is going to be the outcome, but you know, if you look at countries, developed countries like the United Kingdom, for example, the various municipalities or regions are responsible for the lines, the actual rails, and then they'll have multiple train services running on them that are competing. So, in fact, when you have, unlike what we see with Eskom and the other, let's be honest, messes that are parastatal or state-run entities, state-owned entities, what will happen is if you start having a private sector interest, private sector is all about efficiency, it's about competition. So I don't believe that it's necessarily correct to say that if there is a private partner element, a private-public partner element to this, that it will raise costs. In fact, if one just looks at the My City bus service, where we operate along the N2 Express and many other routes, these are operated largely as a public-private entity, because the joint companies that exist between the City of Cape Town, Golden Arrow Bus Services, which is a private company, as well as the various taxi organizations and associations that have been bought out of concession and assist us in those running of those services, and those are all private entities. And the My City bus service is competitive in terms of price, it is affordable, and I think that is a prime example of where what is in effect private-public partnership is already proven over the last decade to work incredibly well. So I would disagree with that sentimental statement that having a private partner involved who knows how to run rail and efficiently and affordably is going to raise the prices. I think it could be, I don't agree with that at all.
All right, Rob, let's leave it there for this evening. Rob Quintas, he's the Mayoral Committee member for Urban Mobility in the City of Cape Town.